Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
Of course, we are talking about Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man, where all of this began. And joining us on the show today is our dear friend Heidi Bennett with the Vibrant Visionaries podcast. Hi, Heidi.
Hey, guys. So great to reconnect with you after, I don't know, like a month or so.
Heidi Bennett makes this the fun cast, not the humdrum cast. What?
Pulling it out like a pro, Pete.
I like to keep it relevant. I like to dance. I like to dance with it a little bit. You know what's so great about Heidi Bennett being here is she's an old hat. I
was going to say, where are you going to go with this?
I'm just going to drop it right there. She's old. No, she's an old hat at these movie by minute. She's the expert. We could learn a thing or two.
Absolutely. What were the ones that you did? Because you did a few of these.
Yeah. So I started with one of my favorite films. I think that's always a good way to start. I started with This is Spinal Tap. And so we did Spinal Tap Minute. And that was very rewarding because guess what? Everybody loves Spinal Tap. This was super fun to talk.
I can only hope you turned it up to 11.
We definitely, and then some.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
What was the other one that you did? Cabin in the Woods, right? Is that the other one you did?
Yeah. We titled it Cabin Minute Cast just because the Cabin in the Woods Minute was a bit of a handful, a bit of a mouthful. But yeah, we did the Cabin in the Woods. So I did the first one with Sean German, Spinal Tap Minute, and then with Molly Balin, my another friend of mine, we did Cabin Minute Cast. So that was fun because it was, funny and scary and suspenseful, and people like to come on and talk about all the different creatures and stuff that came on. So it was nice. It was so sort of different than the other movie, except for there being humor in both of them.
That's fantastic. I have to ask, what was it, if you go back to your thought process before you started Spinal Tap, that made you think, hey, you know what I should do? I should do a podcast in which I talk about one movie 1 minute at a time, because we're still on minute 17. And I feel like, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. Well, I did start listening to Star Wars Minute a few years ago, and I fell in love with that podcast. I thought it was so entertaining, and I really felt like I love Star Wars, but I was really passionate about the relationships, the humor, the way everybody, just got together and got to know each other and started having inside jokes and things. That was just this community of people who love movies and like to start calling Jimmy Smits Space Jimmy Smits, and then
Right.
that's just it from now on. He's Space Jimmy Smits. And I've been a big fan of podcasting in general for many, many years. It's really been like a companion to me as somebody who works for myself. I like to have these other voices in my ears, and I like them to be fun and funny and kind of uplifting people. So the idea of doing one myself, I felt like to start out, I'd start with a movie that I loved. And with Spinal Tap, there's so many jokes packed into every minute, and there's so many things happening in the background. I just thought it would be a nice sort of soft entry, if you will, because there'd be a lot to talk about.
Hallelujah to that.
That is such a fun movie, and I have not spent nearly enough time with it.
Try spending.
Oh, we're learning. We are learning.
You know.
Yes. Well, we should jump into today's show. So today we are digging into minute 17, which starts with an ultra-casual Obadiah asking Tony how it was for him, and ends with Tony waking up after 30 seconds of horror. Pretty action-packed minute that we have here.
It really is. We get some good jokes and repartee. How do you say that?
Repartee. I prefer repartee now.
Repartee. Between all of them, yeah.
This is that minute that takes us back from the flashback that we got early on, where we jumped back 36 hours earlier. And now all of a sudden, we're going to end in kind of the present. But before we get to the present, we should spend a few minutes, because we have Obadiah here, and or Obi, as we learn that Tony likes to call him, which is such a cute nickname for
It really is adorable.
for such a high level of businessman. I just can't picture calling him Obi. It's like the cute little nickname for him.
Now, you guys were mentioning before we got on mic and started recording that you've also discussed the comics. Is Obadiah a character straight from the comics, or is he something for these movies?
He was in the comics quite a ways down. I think he came in around issue 160 or so of the Invincible Iron Man. And it was an interesting character because he was the chess master or something. And he had these guys who were dressed like chess pieces who were fighting against Tony, and you never knew who was behind them. It was totally out of like Inspector Gadget. You would just see his hand on a control as he was talking to them, and that's all you knew until finally you got to meet him. And then you learned that he's this big guy who is a weapons manufacturer just like Tony, and one of his stiffest competition. And when Tony goes into kind of his major spiral of alcoholism, and he ends up like living on the streets, and Rhodey actually ends up donning the Iron Man outfit for like 3 years, Obadiah actually buys Stark Industries and takes over. And so it's a really, really fascinating run of the comics that's definitely worth checking out.
For some reason, I absolutely love Jeff Bridges. I just saw him recently in the new film by Drew Goddard, who did The Cabin in the Woods. He's in the Bad Times at the El Royale.
Right, yeah.
But for some reason, because of the way he's groomed here, I kept thinking it was Jeff Daniels instead of Jeff Bridges. Like, just that just got stuck in my brain. And even when I remember this movie, for some reason, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, and Jeff Daniels is in it. And I go, wait, no, that's Jeff Bridges. Like, I think of them as two completely different actors with two completely different careers. But like I said, somehow with the beard and the shaved head, it just changed it up for me.
That's so funny. And I don't know if Jeff Daniels has ever acted with like a completely bald head, has he? I can't think of a time he has.
I don't know either. It's not like because he's bald,
right,
but it's like the baldness gives me face blindness somehow. I don't know.
All bald people look alike now? Is that what we're saying?
All Jeffs.
All Jeffs look alike. Right?
Once you shave their head, they're all the same. Well, it's definitely not the dude. He's really far away from that type of character in this particular film.
Yeah.
I think he's more akin. We were talking about this in another minute, but he's kind of more that presidential role that he is in like The Contender, or now I'm forgetting what the other ones are, but definitely has a little bit more of that type of character, which he does really well. I feel like you don't see this type of Jeff Bridges as often as you do as like the dude type of character, or the crazy cowboy guy.
Shirtless and
Right.
reclining. Is that what you're talking about? Specifically that?
I don't know how often we've seen that one, period.
Yeah, right.
Actually.
Right. We see him here only on the phone, and I think it was in the last, maybe it was just an extreme close-up that we got of the phone screen, but we had more of that discussion of the beautiful necklace he's wearing and how tough it makes him look. And then they get in the car. We have our buddy who sits in the front of the car.
Yeah, we're back. Garrett Noel is back as Pratt. It's
yes,
nice to see, because we haven't seen him at all until right here.
As the guy opening the door for Tony. And then we have this little exchange where Rhodey comes up to the car, and this has frustrated me since the first time I saw this movie. This particular exchange. Ask me why. Why? Because of the elbow, you guys. The elbow. This is a continuity error, and it's one of those things on the back of Highlights magazine, like find the wrench in the tree. That's what it feels like to me, because if you look at it, the two shot that we have of Tony, his elbow is out the window and his hand is coming back in the window, and it's kind of on Rhodey's hand. And when you go to the reverse shot in the car, his elbow is not hanging out of the car, and it drives me batty. I can't unsee it, and it makes me nuts.
Oh man. Now I'll never look at this minute again the same.
This was supposed to be the fun scene, not the humdrum scene. You see what I did there? I brought it back around.
I have a feeling you're going to keep dipping into that one.
Worst.
When I was watching this, and I did watch it from the beginning as well, just to kind of get myself back in the game here. It had been a while since I'd seen Iron Man. Because now we know Terrence Howard isn't going to come back in the future, him being such a sourpuss kind of had a different vibe to it for me. Like it was more about the actor than the character.
That he's just surly because of contract negotiation or something? Like he's just mad all the time now?
It's just, retroactively, his character got that much more irritated with Tony.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny because my note with this particular minute was, there was a lot of disagreements that they had because Tony was late to the plane and he didn't show up at his awards. And we have seen nothing but disagreement between these two guys because Tony never is fulfilling his obligations as far as Rhodey is concerned. But it's this particular interaction between these two guys that seems the most hurtful for some reason. Like when Tony says, I'm sorry, this is the fun V, the humdrum V is back there. The look on Rhodey's face, it's just like he seems like so hurt and broken. And I've never seen that in any of the other interactions thus far in the film. And it's so funny because I'm like, man, he just really takes this hard. Like, this is it. Like, Tony has crossed the line here.
But you know what's funny about that? I actually think, I love that point because I think Tony's response when Rhodey says, good job, he says, see you back at the base. I almost get a feeling that Tony sees it. You know what I mean? There's like this little nod that just feels like, Tony kind of gets it. His voice changes a little bit when he says, see you back at the base. Something changes there that I feel like you're totally right. That Rhodey's, it feels like he's hurt. And Tony may know. He may know that he screwed up. It doesn't matter. It's not going to impact him.
It's not going to fix things.
Yeah, no. For that, it takes what happens exactly after this.
Yeah, because then we flash to the accident, or the attack, which is a fantastic montage, and end up in the cave. And I like to think that the whole time that Tony is now going to be in this cave, that all he can think about is that look on Rhodey's face and how much hurt he caused his friend. Like if he never got out, that's what he would die thinking.
You went dark, man. I love seeing movies through your eyes, but man, it's all about, it's vindictive darkness.
That's right.
Especially when we're shooting the next sequence through a prism. Like that's supposed to be fun. Like it's a kaleidoscope. It's like Wonderland of cave horrors.
Of cave surgery.
Yeah.
The cave surgery prism montage.
That's going to be our next list. We need a set of movies that are all shot through a prism that only showcase surgeries in caves. That's going to be the next list we have to cobble together. Go ahead. Sorry, Heidi.
Oh no, I was going to say that that the pillows and the bedding and everything to me was like cave prison chic. Like you're in a bad place when you wake up on these striped, beds and bedding and pillow. Like it's kind of a sign that you're not in a great place.
Also, there's a hose in your nose and you're connected to a car battery. That's also a sign. But true, the sheets really sell it.
It is a really nice transition, though, and that's something that I have been appreciating more and more with Jon Favreau and his editing team as I watch this film minute by minute, is just how fantastic he is at finding the way to transition from scene to scene. And I have watched this montage so many times now, the way that, the Jeep, that Humvee explodes and just the fire kind of just dissolves beautifully into the montage of Tony and the surgery and just all these shots and kind of those overlayered shots where it's like two or three of the same shot at different moments within the shot over each other. And it just creates such a fantastic look, and kind of having Tony upside down, everything works really well as we transition to him now in the cave. It's really a great way to move us forward.
Yeah, it's not so confusing that you don't get what's happening, at least an inkling of what's happening. And then the sound, it's kind of this jumble, it goes from rock and roll that to like this rock and roll mishmash that you could imagine might be in his head. He might be confused and hearing this sort of discordant sound collage.
And once he wakes up, the collage of all the sounds goes right into what sounds like a distant scream. Like right about 10 seconds before the end of this minute, you hear just this distant scream that kind of fits perfectly with everything we've just seen, but then also helps really establish this location that Tony now wakes in.
Yeah, it's almost like that scream is the alarm, right? That's the thing that wakes him up, and I think that's really interestingly timed.
It is. It's kind of like that distant scream,
Yeah.
and he kind of snaps awake.
It's incredibly simple. This whole sequence. I mean, it is really just a couple of shots. Like, it's not overkill. It's just you can imagine they do the whole thing in camera. I'm sure they didn't, but they could. And we get the key elements, right? We see them actually place the ring for the magnet in his chest, and that's kind of what we've been waiting for. There's the money shot, so to speak.
Yeah, we see a few of our actors that we'll talk about in the coming minutes. But yeah, you see something getting removed from his chest. You see the electromagnet getting placed on his chest. All the screaming that goes along with it. A wonderful, wonderful bit. The other element that I really like is after we fade out and fade back in on Tony, the camera is on an arm coming down right toward him, which is a fantastic reverse of the moment when the attack first happens and he gets blown up and he kind of pulls his shirt open and sees that he's bleeding and the camera lifts away from him. And it's like, now we're coming back into him. It's just a nice reversal of that moment earlier.
He's been brought back to life.
Yeah, it's interesting too how these minutes play out is because we start this minute by looking at a man from above on a bed, and then we end it, the different man from above on a bed.
Oh, that's interesting, right?
Anything else with this minute, you guys?
I got nothing. We got so many juicy minutes to come.
We sure do. The only thing I was going to say, which is previous minute, not this minute, but a minute that I wasn't around for, was I did enjoy that the first time we're introduced to Jon Favreau, that it's in Vegas. Did you guys happen to? I just thought that was
nod.
a fun little, nod.
It's funny. We talked about that scene, and we actually talked about Swingers, but for some reason we didn't connect the two. So I'm glad that you actually brought that up.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, me too.
That's what I'm here for.
I should say poorly timed. We should have caught that. And yet, great addition.
But I'm glad it's here now.
Yes.
Heidi, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure.
If you want people to track you down, where can they find you and your shows?
So yeah, my current show is Vibrant Visionaries. You can find that at vibrantvisionaries.com, and there's my social links there and ways to subscribe if you're interested. It is conversations with clever, compassionate, multi-creatives. So I talk with filmmakers and actors, comedians, people who do a lot of different creative things. So fellow podcasters and people who have interesting creative lives. They're very casual conversations, but we like to talk about how we, how we do what we do and sort of lessons we've learned along the way. And it's really fun. So there's that. And then the other ones are Spinal Tap Minute. So that's at spinaltapminute.com, and then Cabin Minute Cast, which is at cabinminutecast.com.
Sounds like they're easy to track down.
I try to make it easy.
Fantastic. Well, that is it for today's show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at patreon.com/thenextreel. Until tomorrow, true believers.